So, Ryan, great to have you here in my office with me for one of our Timothy Project podcasts. And of course, as we were talking about a second ago, that the real benefit of this is a chance to sit down and have a good long conversation about all kinds of things. There's not really a set, dedicated line of questioning,
Sure.
but I do want our congregation to know more about you in this process.
Certainly.
I know at
Absolutely.
church we sit with people, and often they know a lot about us, but I'm amazed how many people in a church may not even know really much beyond your name or when you and Sandy started coming or whatever it be.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea with these podcasts.
Got
And
it. Okay.
so be as open as you want to be. And if I ask anything that is either off limits, you just go, Father, another time.
I seriously doubt that's going to happen.
I do
So,
too. It won't be terribly private, but why don't we start generally? So for those maybe who know little more than your name, Ryan, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and start wherever you like in that, just so
Sure.
people can get an idea.
Certainly. Well, it's actually Carl Ryan Wheat
Carl,
is my first
interesting.
name. If you never call me Carl, we'll get along swimming.
Are you a Carl Jr. like the restaurant?
No.
Oh,
I'm not. It's a
okay.
family name, but it's not my
Okay.
dad's name.
Oh, okay.
So you should never call your child something that you're not going to call him or
Sure.
her. But yeah, Ryan Wheat, originally from Dallas, Texas.
Right.
Grew up there. My mother still lives in the house that I was raised in
Nice.
to this day in a suburb of Dallas called Garland, Texas.
Okay.
But yeah, went to school there. Met my wife there when
Mhm.
we were 12 years old, believe
Yep.
it or not. And her family had moved when she was 11 or 12, I believe. And they lived just like 5 houses down the alley.
Oh, you were in the same neighborhood. Oh, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
But we also sat next to each other in band. We both played the trumpet,
There you
and not romantically involved or anything like that. But
Sure.
yeah, we were close friends.
She caught your eye.
She did indeed. Yeah, and I don't blame me for that either. So fast forward to about 22, 23 years old, and Sandy and I had reconnected. She had gone, or her family had moved to the Midland, Odessa area, West Texas.
Okay, so how far is that from Dallas? My
It's
Texas
a really
geog-
long way.
Okay, right.
It's a really long.
So you probably
way.
thought I won't see this person again.
Well, we had moved down closer to the beach. We couldn't stand it there, and then Sandy ended up. Well, we both graduated at the same time, just different schools. We did go to high school together for a period of time, and then she went to University of Texas in Austin. And when she came back, she moved back into the Dallas area again, and actually heard my name on the radio because I was the 9th caller of something.
No way! I've never heard that story.
On a Sunday, I was working on trying to get some overtime.
You
on
weren't
Sunday.
at church? Oh
Yes.
my goodness!
No, I was
Confession after this.
nothing like that, unfortunately.
So you called into a radio program. First of all, did you win? I mean,
Well,
whatever
I did.
it was. Okay,
I
good.
did. I won a U2 CD of which I never went to go pick up. But this is back in the day where you had, the white pages where you could look up somebody's name. It has their phone number and stuff like that.
Wow.
So long before any cell phones or anything like that. And she had called the number, left a message on my machine there, and we just got together. I think we went out to Chili's to go have dinner. We never really dated per se. We just liked each other's company.
Just knew each other.
And hung out quite a bit. And then one time she left to go away with her family to go skiing or something like that, and asked me to come pick her up at the airport. And she was only gone for about a week, but I was like, you know what? I didn't like it when you were gone.
Right.
Why don't you stay? And why don't we become married?
Smooth.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't know what I was doing, clearly. And so we did. We got married. And well, we back up because she was the person that turned me onto the Episcopal faith.
Okay, now take me down that avenue a bit.
Sure. No, it's a great avenue to go down.
So you weren't raised in Episcopal church?
I was not. I'm not a cradle Episcopalian at all. I was going to a Southern Baptist church in North Dallas.
There you go. Robust.
And now my parents didn't go. They weren't church members.
Okay.
But I think I'd gone to Vacation Bible School there. Or something like that. And loved VBS. And so a good friend of mine, I just lived a block over from me. His folks went there. So for the longest time, I would go with them to church, and I got baptized in that church.
Wow. So you went on your own of your own. I mean, you had a friend invite you, but
Yes.
Even though your parents didn't go, you're like, hey guys, I'm off to church Sunday. See ya.
Yeah, and if they couldn't go,
Wow.
my father would drive me there and then come pick me up, but did not attend.
Awesome of you. I'm saying that's
Well,
brilliant.
it was, I don't have a calling like you, Father, but
Well, clearly you heard something.
I have a tug.
Yes.
Okay.
I love it. I
Tug
love
on
it.
my heart.
That's brilliant. Sorry, I cut you
So
off. Go ahead.
so Sandy and I were hanging out one Saturday evening,
Mhm.
and she said, Why don't you go join us and go to the Easter service at the Episcopal Cathedral in downtown Dallas?"
Right.
And my first thoughts were, I don't know about that. They do a lot of standing up and sitting down,
what?
and I said, and honestly, I was a bit nervous going into it because I didn't know what to expect.
Sure.
And so, sure enough, walk through there, and it's Easter Day, so it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And I get into this. I think you've been in the cathedral, no?
I have not been inside. It's the St. Matthew's Cathedral?
Yes.
Yeah, I have not been inside it. But funny enough, we have a parishioner now,
Yeah, Father
David
Hood,
Beadle,
yeah.
yes, who was there. And so I've looked at it a few times on the inside. It looks beautiful
Oh,
from what I can. I'm sure it's more beautiful in person, but
And
yes, I know of it.
and it's more beautiful on Easter Day.
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
like
I'm sure.
any church, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I sit down, still not knowing what to expect,
Yeah.
honestly. And all of a sudden, it was you hear the choir in the back. They have violins and trumpets and trombones, a whole brass
Wow.
section, and just overwhelmingly just taken back.
Yeah.
And then it was more like the first thought occurred to me as the service was, or the priest was going up to the altar.
Mm-hmm.
Is like pomp and circumstance,
Right.
very, very structured.
Right.
And I immediately caught on to that and say, this is what I need. This is absolutely what I need.
Right.
I want the structure. I want the faith. I want the majesty.
Right.
That is now the Episcopal Church. Now, that was the only time I've been there, and the only time I've ever been there. I should have gone back, but
maybe one day. There's still time.
Oh, it's still there. Yes. But we started going to a smaller Episcopal church in Garland, Texas, and that's where we ultimately got married.
Okay.
And we started, having children. Right around that time as well. And then from there, the place I was worked, they were liquidating that place up in Irving, Texas. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, Ryan, we need somebody like you to go to Raleigh. And
where?
This organization was based out of Raleigh. So I've been here once or twice for training. And then they finally made me an offer. We really need you. Can you move up here? Right. And I didn't know anything about anything when it came to moving, closing costs here and closing costs there.
Well,
and
steep learning curve, I'm sure. Now, give me a year here. What year are we talking about?
1990?
90? Okay. 92. Okay.
Yeah, because we got married in 90.
Okay.
And so it was about 1992.
Okay.
I took my lovely bride, my two children, took my lovely bride screaming at me about not leaving Texas. And I just thought, you know what? Let's give it a couple. Let's give it a couple of years. We'll call it an adventure.
And that's always how it happens.
And then if we don't like it, we'll move back to Texas. And those 2 years came and went really quickly.
I'm sure.
And we just fell in love with this area. Yeah. And we discovered we did some. I'll call it church shopping at the time. We're looking for an Episcopal church. It's going to be, excuse me, our home. Yeah. And we looked at a number of them and finally stumbled across St. Timothy's. Yep, this is where we need to be. So we've actually been coming here 32, 33 years.
It's a good long while.
Yes, sir.
Now, do you remember back then, what were some of the things that really stood out to you about St. Timothy's? Maybe not as much what was just surprising, but what were things that really drew you in and you went, this is where we want to be?
Just a very welcoming church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Maybe the people not so much.
Oh, right.
And I hate to say it like that.
So what was welcoming about it then?
It just walking in the doors of St. Timothy's.
Right.
It was very welcoming.
The atmosphere was.
I felt at home. Absolutely felt at home.
Brilliant.
And now the people are super welcoming today. And it was a little cliquish back then.
Sure.
But once you kind of got, angled yourself into that, I still have friends from 30 years ago that are still coming here today.
Yeah.
Or maybe not coming here, but we still stay in touch.
Yeah. So I guess if that was early 90s, I don't know exact dates here, but is that around the time Father James came?
It was
Okay, because
Father
that would have been a
James was
real time of transition for this church then.
it was, and I was very unaware of that
Right.
transition. We were,
Okay.
we were just coming on Sundays because our kids were, that tall,
Sure.
and so it was, Sunday in and then leave. We never really did coffee hour or anything like that at the
Okay.
time, but it was still very, very important to us
Yeah.
that we came and we worshiped and
Yeah.
exposed our children to it as well,
Absolutely.
by all means. And so it's evolved in my heart and evolved in the church itself over
Yeah.
time, and it's just got more and more wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you, I think increasingly as time goes on, we'll find, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but we'll find less and less people who one stay planted anywhere more than a few years, enough to be in a church 30 years. I mean, I'd love to think, as I speak though to people of a younger generation, I think there's that expectation that you will be moving multiple times to multiple places in your life, and
Yeah, of
therefore,
course.
the idea of being planted in a church or even just a house, because I assume you've been in the same house as well since.
We were on our second house.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
That
still.
we've been there for 22 years now.
Okay,
Yeah.
but even that seems like an increasing rarity.
Oh, indeed.
I know the whole
Indeed.
buying a house thing, but that's a whole nother story,
Yeah.
another conversation.
But
But
it's
yeah,
interesting that you bring up that point,
yeah,
because there are a lot of dear friends of mine that attend the services here and other things
yeah,
that don't necessarily live right around the corner. And you know this. I mean, there's
yeah,
it's a bit of a trek just to get here, but it's worthwhile. And
sure,
and I get it. I mean, it's 20-25 minutes for us,
yeah,
but we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about we want to be at St. Timothy's as fast as we possibly can.
right,
And I think I've shared with you before that
mhm.
I'm very blessed and I'm very fortunate that I haven't gotten any tickets on 440 trying to get to St. Timothy. Not because I'm late, just because I want to be at my spiritual house.
Absolutely. It's funny. A few years ago, we had two maps. I think the school created one for their parent communities where everyone lived, like plotted little Google pins on everywhere.
Okay.
And then we did the same, and it was so interesting how almost inverted the maps were. That the
Oh
vast
yeah.
bulk of students who attended St. Timothy's School were all in this sort of zip code of 27609,
Sure.
where our
Sure.
church is.
Hmm.
And the church was literally, not literally, okay, almost the exact inverse, is that we only had a handful of people who were actually in this 27609 zip code, and the vast bulk, I mean, you're talking 80% were in some other
Yeah.
surrounding area,
Yeah.
maybe about half North Raleigh-ish, so from where we are north.
Okay.
But yeah, all around South Raleigh, Cary, Apex,
Yeah.
Nightdale. I mean, I was surprised when you see it visually, like, wow, a
Yeah.
lot of people, it's a commute to come here.
And well,
And
the
so,
DeBecks live in Clayton, for crying out loud.
yeah,
So that's
exactly.
that takes a minute to get to get to and
Yeah.
from.
But I take that as a great, um, well, sense of satisfaction that people feel a connection here, and
Yes.
that they're willing to make that drive. And of course, it raises all kind of questions about how do we minister well when our community is spread geographically like that. But even still, the fact that people want to be part of a community like this gives me, yeah,
Yeah.
great
And
peace
I've experienced
in my heart.
that challenge before too, as
Sure,
a past leader in this
sure,
church, of being conscious of the fact that we're not all right around the corner from each other,
yeah,
and so that delivers some of its own challenges, but
yeah,
it's mostly overcame,
right,
because people do want to be here.
yeah,
People do want to be involved. People really do want to be engaged.
yeah,
Not just a Sunday from 10 to 11:30,
yeah.
but Monday through Saturday as well. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned, of course, being in leadership. I think probably a good number of people know that you led the men's fellowship for a number of years. In fact, you were leading that when I got here. So it was
Uh-huh.
a good long time you were in that leadership role. Kind of with that in mind, how has some of the non-Sunday stuff about St. Timothy's, like men's fellowship, like other groups, how some of that changed from what you've seen? If not that group in particular, just the sort of engagement people have in ministry as we become a bit more mobile, as opportunities on Sunday increased, as culture changes as it relates
Yeah.
to Sunday activities. So track me through from the early 90s. We're a good long span here, but yeah, how have you seen that shift?
I'll be honest with you. It was a tad bit stagnant
Okay.
back in the day. There wasn't a whole lot of movement. What I mean by that
Right.
is, not a whole lot of activity that I was aware of.
Sure.
Outside the church or within the church, outside of Sundays.
Right.
Now that started aggressively becoming more a thing.
Mhm.
And so, yes, I was part of the men's fellowship. I led that for a number of years, but also the Daughters of the King. They've been just a staple of
Mhm.
this church for many, many years.
Yeah.
But also some of the newer things that are going on. It just still thrills me. Not, I'm not a woman, so I can't participate. But the Soul Sisters activity,
Yeah.
it just gotten bigger and bigger over time. And
Yeah.
everybody, whenever my wife has the opportunity to participate in it, she comes home with a huge grin on her face. Had a great time, and
Awesome.
it's just endearing to hear that to me.
Yeah.
So, but other organizations, have blossomed. So, and there's been a couple of starts and stops. Not gonna
Sure.
lie,
Sure.
with good intentions.
Sure.
But by and large, people do want to be engaged. People do want to participate
Yeah.
with church-like activities. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think as you look, I mean, I guess you and Sandy were in your 30s when you started coming here? Late 20s?
Yeah,
I don't want to try to do the math. I won't embarrass you.
back when
Let's just say in your younger years.
dinosaurs roamed the earth. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Listen to you. So, I guess when you were getting involved at that stage with young kids, and you see that now in our congregation, people that age group getting involved, what's something you would say to them if given the chance? I mean, you've kind of run that whole gamut. So, young couple comes in with two boys.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you say to them? How would you get them involved? And
I think, what, that's a great question. I think the church has done such a good job,
Mhm.
with Sunday nursery, childcare,
Right.
things like that. And there was zero, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I think.
Well, when COVID hit, yeah, it all
Yeah, it just went to
closed
nothing.
down.
And so, one of the things I would say is, stick with it,
Yeah.
because you want your little ones to be, brought up in, around St. Timothy's.
Yeah.
It it it's here to be taken. The faith is there for us,
Yeah.
and let them learn, let them grow in that faith here. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe every Sunday's not easy. I remember having kids. It's not the easiest getting
Yeah.
pants and breeches on and stuff like that. First thing Sunday morning, but just stick with it, and you'll see them grow up to be good Christian, or have their own good Christian households.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I'm sure when you are having to get multiple kids up, heck, one was hard enough. I can imagine getting two or three up. Yeah, it's hard, but to hear someone say, "Hey, look, it's worth it."
Totally worth it. Absolutely.
It is probably encouraging for those parents. So I hope they're watching, and I hope they're taking heart. So good. Well, let me ask this, kind of pivoting to your kids. And of course, I have met them. You might,
Hmm.
I guess others might not know. You have two kids, two sons,
I do.
and of course now two grandchildren as well.
I do
And
indeed. Yes.
so, I mean, talk to me about that transition then from fatherhood. You can start as far back in that as you want to, little boys or as grown boys, and then into that grandparent sort of
Yeah.
phase. I mean, what has that journey been like for you? Um,
uh, ju- when I start thinking about, getting in the Wayback Machine and going back and thinking about,
the DeLorean.
yeah, I get this huge grin on my face. I really do.
Nice.
Because I was always, part of their, of course, I'm part of their lives, but I was always soccer coach, baseball coach, basketball coach,
Okay.
things of that nature. We tried, I think, Boy Scouts for a while, and my boys weren't near as into it as I was
Right.
whenever I was a young person. Um, so, and then you kind of fast forward. Both of them went to colleges here, at ECU and UNCW,
Yeah.
and then just watching them grow
Yeah.
along the way
Yeah.
is, I love seeing things grow, whether they be plants and flowers or
Mhm.
people, because even
Nice.
at my elderly age right now, at my geriatric,
Elderly, listen
I'm
to you.
I'm still growing. I might not be growing up physically.
Sure.
I'm growing, mentally. So to see that, and now to have two little bitty grandkids,
Yeah.
it's just, again, big grin, because
Nice.
my grandkids, and I always say, uh, they they got me wrapped around their little finger for sure.
Is that true?
Absolutely, absolutely true. In
Nice.
fact, I was just over there last night for dinner, and my
Brilliant.
my granddaughter's now 9 months old. My grandson's a little over 3.5 years old.
Yeah.
So, and my son and my daughter-in-law, their hands are full, as you can
Sure.
imagine.
Oh,
You know, with
I'm sure.
two of them that are kind of needy at those ages,
Yeah.
right? So, but uh, one thing that is, when are you coming back to St. Timothy's? When are you going to get these youngins to St. Timothy's?
Right.
And I understand why they haven't just yet.
Sure.
I think it's breathing room too, because
Right.
Sunday morning is just like any other morning to them. They hit the ground running every morning at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And you know what, we'll press the brakes on that for a moment,
Sure.
and then here within the next couple of years, let's revisit it, because it is, to me
Yeah.
and Sandy, is very, very important to get them in
Yeah.
young, get them baptized, and
Yeah.
make them want Christ's own.
And I don't have kids yet, the age of your sons, but I imagine that's always that tough thing, is that they're still your kids. You still want to parent them, but yet they are also grown adults. And
Yes.
finding that balance of being the parent, but also you can't just order them around anymore. You've got to suggest, you've got to
Yeah.
try your best to walk a line there that's hard. I imagine, even in fact, I feel certain other parishioners in our church are in that same sort of, you know,
Yeah, and I have to.
place where they have kids who are adults, and yeah, their faith is important to them. They want to share that with their kids or even grandkids.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a hard one.
And
Um,
I have to sit back every now and then, and just tell myself, keep breathing, Ryan, keep breathing, and
please do.
just be patient
Yeah.
with them along. They're
Yeah.
they're on their own path as well,
Right.
and so I've got to respect that, but I also have to be
Yeah.
patient with the decisions they make
Yeah.
going forward. Now, both of my children attended St. Timothy's up until
Yeah.
they didn't either no longer lived in this state
Yeah.
any longer, or had their own children,
Yeah.
and so they're very aware. My oldest, Trevor,
Hmm.
actually got confirmed here at St. Timothy's
Yeah.
a number of years ago. I think he was 24, 23
Okay.
at the time,
Yeah.
and so that was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And so he's very aware of
Hmm.
the ins and outs of the church, and it's in his heart. So he'll get here one of these days.
Now, if I remember, weren't you also received later on? Or
I was confirmed.
confirmed, right. I remember you
Yes,
saying
yes,
that
yes,
it
yes.
wasn't just that you came to age at 13, 14, went, oh, I mean, you came in later. So,
Yes, it was.
yeah.
Oh, wow, it was 22 years ago. 22
Okay.
years ago, yeah,
Or about year 2000,
yeah. Mhm.
2005-ish, some kind of ballpark.
And
Yeah.
I remember Father James was here at the time,
Hmm.
and I was actually just a little nervous. It's going to sound funny, but I was a little nervous because I wasn't a cradle Episcopalian,
Right.
and so I kind of sheepishly went up to him. He was in the narthex,
Hmm.
and after services were over, and I sheepishly said, Father James, I'm interested in going through confirmation,
Hmm.
which he was delighted about.
Hmm.
I said, but I got to tell you, and I am baptized because I know that's one of the requirements.
Right.
But I wasn't baptized in an Episcopalian church.
Right.
And he looked at me very sternly, and he said, well, which church did you get baptized in? I said, and kind of sheepishly again, I said, I got baptized in a Baptist church.
Okay.
And he said, oh, well, holy moly. No, they do it right, for crying out loud. The whole dunking, the whole nine. Yeah, no, you're fine, Ryan. So, so it made me feel a lot more at ease to go forward with
Good,
it. Yeah.
good. Actually, I will say there's something I appreciate about the way the Baptist Church does it. That I think, they of course, what makes them Baptist in name is that they really do have a belief that there's no infant baptism; it's just believers' baptism.
Yeah,
I mean, we say adult baptism; that could be any age, but believers' baptism, and I do see a certain wisdom in that. I mean, I do appreciate, as an Anglican, I believe children can be baptized,
Mhm.
and those parents can absolutely make those promises. But there is something kind of nice, I think, about someone saying, "Hey, I'm making this decision," like the people in the early church.
Sure. Yes.
Like that, eunuch that Philip.
Yeah.
What prevents me from being baptized? What a great thing to say, and then
Isn't it?
let's go do it. I mean, that kind of immediacy of I'm making the decision and then I'm doing it. And so I think that's great that you had that privilege
Yeah,
of
and yeah,
remembering it and also knowing that you made the profession and decision. It wasn't made over you in any way.
absolutely. And I enjoyed it so much. I was probably a little bit of a pain because every year confirmation classes would come about,
Okay.
and I would attend them every year
Okay.
because it was important to me. I love learning about the
Right.
my religion and
Yeah.
older religions, and so I mean to the point where they said. You can bow out this year, Ryan. It's okay. We're going
You
over
know the
the same
material.
material, same content that you already know in and out. So, but yeah, it was one more step for me. I look at,
Brilliant.
and I remember being confirmed. It was Bishop Curry
Oh,
did it.
yes.
I was like,
Former presiding bishop. That's
and
right.
who is this guy again? Um, but such a delightful
I'm
man.
sure you learn the minute he walks in the room. He just has this electric kind of presence that you can't really miss.
No, not at all. And
Um,
he reminded me really more of a Baptist minister.
oh, really?
The way he preaches
Right.
and I was like, yeah, I like this guy a lot. I didn't get a chance to really
He'll
get to
do.
know him or anything, but
Sure.
I was confirmed by him. I think that speaks volumes for me.
Well, maybe one day he'll walk into St. Timothy's. I know he lives fairly locally. I don't know exactly where, but
I
maybe
would
one day
love
he'll
to
just
see.
stroll on in and
Yeah,
come worship with us. That'd be amazing.
yeah.
That would be amazing. Well, very cool. Wow. Goodness. So you've got 30 plus years both here in Raleigh and here at St. Timothy's.
Mhm.
What at then your stage of life still makes you excited? You mentioned your faith, and knowing you as I do, I do know that's the case. What else just makes you excited about life in general?
About life in general,
Living life, where you are in life. Yeah,
it's a big question, isn't it?
it is. That's what the podcast is for.
Yeah, it's
You
kind of
have a
like
moment to think.
what excites me,
What
what I
excites you? What gets you up
enjoy.
out of bed in the morning and
Yeah,
makes you want to go, this is going to be a good day?
yeah. No, it's really a number of different things. Uh, this time of year, as we were discussing before
Mhm.
we came on, I'm out in my yard. It's already kind of hot outside and muggy, and I'm watering all the plants, and I've got a lot of plants out there, and that's one of the things that really excites me because again, I
Right,
love seeing things grow,
right.
and so that, and then once I get that over, this is the kind of routine day
Hmm.
in and day out
Yeah.
for yours truly, and then it might be something that a lot of people at St. Timothy's that know me don't know that about me is
Okay.
that I get wrapped up with all of my morning duties, and then right around lunchtime, a little post lunchtime, I hit the gym and I,
Go.
I lift weights like a mad person. I really do,
Really?
and or I just stay mobile. I encourage everybody. I don't care if you're 6 or 60. Please stay mobile. It's the only thing that's gonna.
It's
There's so many
brilliant.
benefits from it. But
Yeah.
I've been doing it almost at a little over a third of my life. So since I
Okay.
like 35, 37, I
Yeah.
started doing. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
Uh,
We just felt that compulsion to get up and get active.
well, at the time, I also had the compulsion just to fit into my own jeans, and so that was kind of a driving event. And I was successful at it, and I was
Okay.
like, you know what, I really like doing this. And then once I started lifting weights and stuff, and I don't do it from a vanity perspective. I do it from I feel
Sure.
better about me physically if I do this. And if I
Right.
don't do it, I do feel bad about it.
Sure.
So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Sandy had just been out for, she had a knee replacement surgery,
Yeah. Just recently.
a successful one too, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
And and so I didn't feel comfortable leaving her at the house
Mm-hmm.
while she was recovering, of
Sure.
course. And so I didn't get a chance to go to my gym for 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
And I was just kind of chomping at the bit. I really got to get, but she's more important. And and so by the time she was kind of up on her own a little bit more self-sufficient,
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, well, maybe I can escape for an hour. Maybe I shouldn't use the word escape. Maybe I can leave for
I
an
know what you
hour
meant. Yeah.
and and go out there. And I started doing that. And we're back on the same track. So it's things like that. Then and Sadie and I have a kind of our our routine,
Mhm.
daily weekly
Sure.
routine, um, and a lot of it, really, Father, and I think I've shared a
Hmm.
lot of this with you, is we really, really like watching. At this is later on at night after supper,
Sure.
things like that. Watching Christian type programming,
Yeah.
and we've uncovered a lot of really interesting nuggets that are out there, whether that be in a streaming service or
Yeah.
something of that nature. I think uh, and we've talked about this a lot, but after I saw The Chosen,
Yeah.
that kind of uh, put me over the edge of there's got to be other great
Yeah.
content,
Yeah.
and there's some that's not so good.
Right.
So we can see straight through that pretty quick, and I know you've shared some of that with me as well. Uh, but that's, day in and day out. That's what we're doing. In fact, we're watching a guy right now. His name is Wes Huff, and I don't know if I've shared that with you or
I
not
don't
yet.
know if you have, but I know who he is.
Okay,
Yeah, I think he has a podcast. I don't know,
I know he's
but
been on several
okay,
podcasts,
right.
and that's my son actually turned me on to him
Okay.
just a week or two ago.
And he's sort of focused on like apologetics, as in talking about the Christian faith, or is it more like history or
Historian. He's
okay,
more of a
historian.
historian.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know me, I'm big into early
Yeah,
Christianity.
I do know
So a
that.
lot of things he's saying, I knew that, but now I know it even more, kind of
Sure.
thing. And that's and even coming to church each and every Sunday, whether it be your sermon, whether it could be the
Mhm.
reading, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I know the readings, but now I know a bigger picture
Sure.
about the readings.
Right.
And he kind of explores that from a historical perspective. He'll
Right.
be the first one to
Yeah.
tell you he's not a philosopher or anything like that.
Hmm.
He's a historian, but it's things like that. There was one show, I think it was on Prime Video, um,
Hmm.
called Drive Through History. I know I shared that with you,
Yes.
but I shared it with a bunch of the parishioners as well. They're
Brilliant.
just 25, 30-minute digestible nuggets,
Hmm.
and like 18 episodes in a season, multiple seasons.
Yeah.
And I remember one Sunday I shared that with your mom and dad.
Uh huh.
And then the next Sunday we were visiting during coffee hour, whatever the
Hmm.
case may be. And I asked your dad, I said, did you get a chance to watch any of what we talked about last week? He said, I'm finished with them all already.
Oh, nice.
So he benefited from it just
Yeah.
like we did.
Brilliant.
Just binge watch the entire thing.
Nice.
And so
That's both the blessing and curse of stream services. The binge
indeed,
watching.
indeed, yeah.
It's great, but
You don't have to
yeah.
pick your timing. You can start watching at midnight. But yeah, things like that. And I love if it is a good nugget, good find, then I'll share it with other members of the congregation.
So based on that, if you could go and visit any of the places you have learned about, where would you want to go? And I know it's probably not just one, but what
No.
one comes to mind as I ask that?
Well, the Sea of Galilee, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Jerusalem, yeah, of course, but
Sure.
Jerusalem's. It's kind of like we visited Vienna a couple of years ago. It's a big city,
Yeah.
So
Kind of hard to imagine what it looked like 2,000 years ago.
absolutely.
I mean, you can, but it's a modern
It's a
bustling city.
stretch. Where the Sea of Galilee, other places
Yeah.
like Ephesus and Corinth and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to go see
Yeah.
what that's all about, and plan to one of these days.
Sure.
Absolutely, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
And out of curiosity as well, I guess kind of in a similar vein, do you have a certain church figure in history that you either really connect with or link to outside of the Lord?
Right.
Can't say Jesus. That's assumption.
Had to
That's
put
assumed.
guardrails around that one,
Yeah. But is there someone that you just go, either you've read something or seen something or heard something about them and just went, I like this person?
Wow, what a great question. St. Paul for sure.
Sure.
He's
He's the dude.
he is the man. But I'd say almost any of the apostles and what they went
Yeah.
through gladly and faithfully. But there was also, I think, Nicodemus is a great character. He would have been very, very interesting just to sit down and have a conversation with.
Yeah.
Um,
In the dead of night, like Jesus did.
it fly on the wall.
Yeah,
yes, I
there you
would
go.
love to
Oh,
be,
can you
yeah.
imagine? I know.
Yeah. So, and it was. I'm missing so many more. I guarantee I'll walk out of here 15 minutes later going,
Oh,
why
it's
didn't
all
I say
good.
this guy?
That's
Why
okay.
didn't I say
There's
this
plenty
girl?
to choose from.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, other like kind of minor characters like Veronica,
Mhm.
um, Mary Magdalene's a fascinating character to me,
Yeah.
honestly. But yeah, I'd say uh, a- anywhere between St. Paul and
Yeah.
Moses, and that's a big stretch.
That's a
I
big
know
chunk.
it.
That's a big chunk.
Yeah. So
It's for the Bible.
yeah,
Got it.
just digest all of it
That's
now.
awesome. Well, Ryan, I encourage you in that. I mean, to be learning more about your faith in every era. I hope it only strengthens your own faith, because that's the real benefit about learning about the people of the Scripture. Is you get a sense that this person was just like me. I mean,
Yeah,
whether it was Saint Augustine or whether it was Martin Luther or whether it was,
absolutely.
heck, I mean, golly, the list is endless. But heck, even today, I think the church is remembering Priscilla and Aquila, who
Okay.
were companions of Paul's. They were
Hmm.
just tent makers, and yet they learned the faith,
Yep.
became Christians, met him in Corinth, and co-laborers in the battle. And yeah, it's amazing how hearing other people's stories, maybe much like we're doing right now, encourages us and hopefully helps strengthen our faith. That one, we're not alone. Two, people have gone through similar things
Hmm.
in all ages of history, and yet still been able to follow Christ faithfully. And I hope it encourages people and strengthens them, much like it sounds like it's doing for you. So
It absolutely
that's
does.
great.
And going back to kind of routine day in the life of Ryan
Yeah,
Wheat,
sure.
by the time I get back, Monday through Friday,
Hmm.
I get back from the gym. It's time to immediately eat because
Protein.
you gotta. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I do is I take it up to my office. I'll just make a sandwich or what have you. Take it up to my office and I'll just kind of binge on some deep Bible stories on YouTube.
Brilliant.
There's one of the few commercial free
Hmm.
content that you can get, and
Yeah.
and when it says deep Bible story, it means deep Bible stories.
Brilliant.
So you're following along, and
Yeah.
there's been more than a couple of times I'm like, no, rewind that one a little bit because I need to hear that one again,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Awesome.
So it's and then follow up with it.
Hmm.
Whether you follow up by making it part of your own personal lifestyle,
Yeah.
or just follow up to take the go down even deeper into
Hmm.
that rabbit hole, if you
Yeah.
will.
I'll tell you, that is both the challenge, but also the blessing of this sort of internet age we live in. On the one hand, you figure if we dialed back the clock 2 generations ago,
Mhm.
to your grandparents, for example,
Sure.
they probably, if they went to church, that would have been the Christian content they would have gotten. I mean, that's probably about it. Maybe they
Absolutely.
would have read the Bible themselves. Maybe they've had other books, but generally Sunday was your feeding time
Yes.
with the word, and now in this age here, we can watch sermons, podcasts, Bible studies from people all around the world.
Biographies. Yeah.
Indeed. And so, here you have a access to information that is just unheard of in ages past,
It is.
which is good. I mean, if you have that itch to scratch, man, it
Well,
can,
I
which
would
is
go one
great.
step further, and I have too, and I'll give you an example of this. Is that
Yeah,
um, take what you've learned and put it into practical application.
sure.
And the example is this last we were out of town in back in Texas
Hmm.
during the 4th of July, and we were at the beach house that my brother-in-law owns, and
Hmm.
the beach house right next to his. There was a whole family from great grandma on down to the littlest baby, and
Wow.
they were super nice people. And Saturday night, they invited me over. It was pretty late. It was probably about 11 o'clock at night. I should have been in bed, but
Phew. This
they
late.
invited me over, and we got to talk and just sit down on their deck. And ultimately, we had church. That's not
Nice.
why I came over. They didn't say, "Hey, Ryan, we're gonna worship the Lord over here."
Yeah.
But I got to talking about the how important it is to me to understand. This was Saturday night. Is
Hmm.
to understand the deep meaning behind the woman at the well, for example.
Right.
So we were talking about it, and I said, "You do understand why that is more important than what it said, what's on the surface."
Right.
And they were a little, Ryan, I don't get help us out with that, brother.
Yeah.
And so we studied that together, and then we prayed, and we called
Brilliant.
it a night. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm personally now trying to put it in more of a my own type of application. Yeah.
Right. Now, I imagine, and I know I've preached this many times 'cause I think it's true, but a lot of people, maybe especially in our denomination, have a great concern about talking about their faith. I mean, do I dare say sharing the faith, but even probably talking about it as even you did, when it came up naturally in conversation. Do you think that's how much of that is you personally? You just feel quite comfortable opening up, like you're kind of an open book as a person?
Sure.
Or do you feel like even as you have grown in your faith, that has become easier or
Uh,
both?
oh no, as I've grown in my faith,
Right.
absolutely. There was one of one of the parishioners, a dear friend of ours.
Hmm.
Um, his daughter was here at the church, and I can't even remember what. I think we might have been hanging in the greens
Okay. Yeah.
one year, something
Hmm.
like that.
Putting up the Christmas decks.
and and she was just sitting in the pew, and as was I,
Yeah.
and she and we knew each other,
Hmm.
and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely." And she said, uh, "What did you do when you lost your faith?"
Hmm.
And I think I might have shared this with you.
Hmm.
Um, I said, "Dear, I'm the worst candidate to ask that question to, because one, it's never happened,
Right.
and two, I don't foresee it happening anytime
Hmm.
soon." And I asked her. I said, "Can you just come on a journey with me?"
Hmm.
And she said, "Yeah." She said, "Yeah," because you could tell she was struggling
Sure.
with it. So in my journey, it was very simplistic. We went from this pew where what I call a minor miracle happened to me to
Yeah.
this pew where a minor miracle happened to another pew. I said,
Wow.
"I'm not trying to convince you to do it. I'm just telling you what has happened to me and
Yeah.
witness of what has personally happened to
Yeah.
myself."
But that is exactly what evangelism is. I mean, 9 out of 10 times, yes, there's reasons we can give for the faith, sort of intellectual reasons. That's good. I'm glad people have that kind of
Sure.
thought process. But I think what is so compelling, what often draws people to reconsider faith or even find faith for the first time or find it again is that witness of someone who's gone, hey, this has happened to me. I need to say nothing more. I don't know why it happened. Why did God tell me this when he did? Why did this
Mhm.
minor miracle happen? But it did.
Yes.
And I'm just telling you, and it's amazing how that can almost be the kind of steam that drives the engine forward for people, in a way that just reasoning and kind of cold philosophy isn't.
Oh no, no, and
Um,
I get that too. I really do.
so that's brilliant. That
And
is
in
brilliant.
fact, I've learned something within the last year. I think I
Hmm.
shared. There's a Catholic bishop, Robert Barron,
Oh yeah,
um,
Bishop Barron.
that I follow sometimes on YouTube. He just kind of grabs me. He's easy to listen to.
Yeah, but
He's
very bright as well.
a
I
sir.
gather.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
definitely an
Yes.
intellectual, but not in that sort of hoity-toity kind of way.
No, not at
Yeah.
all. And there's it's like a 45-minute video of his, and he talks intimately about the birth of Christ.
Hmm.
And he says, and it says there was a stratios of angels. And he
Hmm.
said that comes from our words like strategy and strategic.
Right.
And he said what that really means is there's an army of angels surrounding the
Right.
birth of Jesus. And so I've never looked at Christmas again the same way
Right.
after that, because it's super important to understand.
Yeah.
Now it might be a tiny little footnote in scripture,
Sure.
but it's this big, huge, overwhelming thing kind of thing. Not
Well,
overwhelming, good
I know what you
overwhelming.
mean. Yeah, sort of awe-inspiring.
Yes, indeed.
And especially stories that we hear year on year. It's one thing to
Mhm.
learn something about a part of the Bible that you never knew about. Oh, I didn't know that Ezekiel 10 said this. Most of us don't have that to mind. But something like the Christmas story or the Easter story, man, those are
Or
stories we
even Palm Sunday, is I mean,
sure.
there's a lot going on
Right.
that we're only really participating in an hour and a half's worth of it.
Hmm.
No, that was a big to do, right?
Yeah.
So, um, learning about that, personally learning about that, and then again applying that into your own practical application, I think is it's big for me.
Yeah.
I might be a little strange in that area, but it's big for me.
Well, I'm glad you're strange in that area because I think we need more of that as the Christian church, a little bit of strangeness in that
And
area.
I'm not bashful to not share.
Sure.
I love sharing this. If you don't want to hear about it, just tell me. That's fine.
Yeah.
But most do. Most people
Oh, yeah.
are either looking or very similar to me. They want to take the next level or the next step,
Yeah.
if you will. And they go, no, no, no. I want to hear a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, let's go pray about it.
That's brilliant. Well, I mean, again, knowing you and Sandy as I've gotten to know you, I know you also have a great cloud of witnesses who are not necessarily linked to St. Timothy's Church, people there in Nightdale that you know, and just again, people we've met over the years from being
Hmm.
here so long,
Hmm.
and to hear how you've been able to really live faithfully in front of them, and how at certain times it's really helped. You know, that you've been that
Absolutely.
salt and light, or that light on a lampstand, to use Jesus's analogy, at
Hmm.
a time when people needed comfort, peace, hope, guidance, and so yeah, it's sometimes we look at your St. Paul types and think, oh, that's them, or the great saints of old, that's them. But actually, that's exactly what God calls us to be, that same light on a lampstand.
I agree.
And
I agree.
so it's just good to hear that you're doing it. And it's good to know that's happening in our church, because I'd love to think it happens in every church.
And
I'm
well,
not convinced it does, or at
well,
least not visibly,
well,
but
Sandy and I
yeah.
have to catch ourselves, or maybe I shouldn't speak for her, but I'll speak for myself. I have to catch myself sometimes that if I'm hanging out with friends that I've known here for 20, 25 years,
Hmm.
and they know that we come to St. Timothy's a lot, not just for Sundays
Yeah.
services, but a lot, and ultimately, um, they'll ask questions.
Hmm.
We have and you've met him, I believe.
Hmm.
I call him my other son,
Hmm.
and he's not ours, but he used to live with us whenever he was in middle school and high school.
Right.
Came from a broken family. Still see him almost every day. He comes over to the house, and
Nice.
every other time he's over, and he'll claim to be an atheist. I'm like, no, you're not. You're hanging out with me right now,
Nah.
and some of it's gonna wear on you a little bit. But he'll ask questions,
Yeah.
and I'll try to answer as good as I possibly can. And if I don't know, I'll say, I don't know. Let's look it up together.
Yeah.
So he'll ultimately get there.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to what I was saying earlier. I got to be patient with me to be patient with them.
And I hope, whoever's watching this will take that to heart, that probably chances are, even if it's not a son or a daughter, they know people who, neighbors or coworkers who,
Yeah,
maybe are not just not Christian, but even antagonistic toward Christianity. And
certainly.
how do you sort of patiently, you are who God has put in their life. And I think to
Right.
hold that honor, not in some sort of grand way, but to know that, hey, you are being used by the Lord in the life of
Yeah.
that person, that
Hmm.
son in your case. But for those watching, maybe that coworker, that child, that neighbor, and to know that you don't have to force it. You can just be genuine. You can be authentic in front of them. If you don't know, you don't know, but you're living that out. And yeah, I would love to see our church really embody that.
Yeah.
Any church, ours
And
included.
I don't think
But
it's a
but yeah,
egotistical kind of thing either.
no,
It's not a,
no,
hey, look at what I know that you don't know because
mm-mm.
I go to church every Sunday. No, nothing
Right,
like that at all. It's more along the lines of, have you thought of it this way?
right,
And then, well, how do you know that?
right.
Well, let's go down that rabbit hole for a second, but I'm not going to keep you. I just want to
Sure.
know, this is how I've learned
Right.
through my own personal, whether it be early Christianity studies or what I do on a, weekly basis here.
Yeah. Brilliant. Wow. That's cool. That's cool. That's very cool. Well, let me ask this then. If you, thinking about our church, if you could see something develop here that you don't see yet, what would you hope that would be? Whether it's something we used to have and bring it back, or whether it's something we don't have, but you've seen it elsewhere. I don't know. You had a dream at last night and the Lord told you. What is something you think, man? Because I mean, look, no church is perfect and doing everything
No,
perfectly.
no, of course not.
And so when you look at our church, what would be something you'd like to see develop, change? Um, yeah, just start to happen in life, our church over the next year, 2 years, whatever it be. I'm curious what comes to mind.
Well, we're already a very giving church,
Right.
which is I'm proud for that
Yeah.
to be a parishioner here and proud for
Yeah.
that. I think we could always give more.
Right.
And I've talked with you about it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think anybody in our community,
Hmm.
whether they're a Christian or not, should ever go hungry, for example.
Sure.
But now uh, that's a hole that you really need to understand before you take action on and
Right.
execute on. So
Right.
it's always in the back of my mind. I know other parishioners here at St. Timothy's are thinking the same way.
Right.
But again, it's a big topic
Mhm.
But I started with as you're aware, baby steps. At the
Mhm.
very end of what used to be the men's fellowship,
Mm.
doing a coat drive, for
Yes,
example.
I remember that.
So, I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish.
In
Um,
fact, take a moment to boast. I think you expected how many coats and got how many? Do you
the
remember?
first year,
I don't remember if it was the first or the second year you did it.
well, the first year I was really in the back of my mind. I didn't
Okay.
publicize this or anything like that,
Okay.
but I was really wanting 100 coats.
Right.
And I think, this is going to be it's like a 3 or 4 week drive, maybe a 3 week
Yeah.
drive, I believe. And so, I'm not asking a lot. Just go up to your closet. So you got coats in there. You haven't worn them. You haven't looked at them
Right.
in ages. Bring them to us. Come on.
Yeah.
And a little bit disappointed because year one, we received 37 coats.
Okay.
So
Hoping for 137. Got
right.
it.
So, but I think that kind of started the uh, people that actually thinking about it. I think people thought, oh, you know what, the coat drive is come and gone. I really had these set aside for that.
Mhm.
I'm positive that happened.
Right.
Then roll around to year two, which is last year, and same thing. Just
Mhm.
ask people, put it in the order of service in the bulletin, and part of the announcements as well. And I'm thinking, yeah, I just want to eke into that 100.
Mhm.
Is really all I would want to do, and
Yeah.
that to me would determine success
Mhm.
for a giving type of uh, application, if you will.
Yeah.
And I was just thrilled, almost tears in my face. 217 coats.
Isn't that
I delivered to
incredible?
Raleigh Rescue Mission. Just big grin on my face the
Oh, I
entire
remember
time.
that photograph. Yes. They
Yeah,
put it in the, announcements.
yeah. So
That's terrific.
things like that. But I don't even think that's thinking out of the box. And
Right.
I'm certainly going to think about that question that you posed.
Yeah.
I don't really have that silver bullet to provide
Sure.
you with right now.
No.
You're right. Can any church get better? Absolutely.
Sure.
But if we don't serve our communities, we're not doing what the Lord asked us to do.
Indeed. And yeah, I think for our church especially, I mean, St. Timothy's has a real scope and opportunity to, I think, do even more. And I'm very curious what the Lord will reveal, probably through conversations like this, or people
Hmm.
giving some thought to it as they're listening to us and going, "God, that idea that's just an idea in my heart? What if we put it into action
Yes.
and sort of empower that? Not as much about just the output of stuff, like, oh, we got the coats or we did the food, but that sense that we are seeing the need and living out and recognizing, what God's calling us to do. That to me as the pastor is as exciting as what we actually give or don't give.
Oh yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's the change in people, the empowerment of people to go out and do it. That
Yes.
that is incredibly exciting.
And I know,
Um,
in the proximity of this church, which is uh, the North Hills area and all this stuff, it's not getting any smaller.
no.
I know that just because I
Mm-mm.
just drove here, um, and everybody was in my way. Um, but even to this, small community that's thriving
Right.
right now, where's the spot for St. Timothy's?
Mhm.
How can we give to that community that and it's kind of
Yeah.
a rocky road too. How do you give to a community that hasn't asked for it, right? And that's a tough one.
That is. I vaguely want to say another one of our parishioners telling me that you can write to the local government. I have to see if I can find this out again, or someone's watching. Maybe they can email me and tell me. You can basically write. I can't remember if it's a charity or the government itself, and they will give you a sort of breakdown based on data they have about you know socioeconomic makeup of the area.
No kidding. Wow.
Yes, I'll have to. I know who this parishioner is. I don't want to out them in case they don't want to be, but they
Sure.
were mentioning this before. This is a few years back, and they were telling me this, and I can't remember again if it was through a charity or the local government, but they would essentially give you a breakdown of your, maybe let's say zip code for the moment,
Okay.
and kind of, yeah, break it all down for you. And this person was suggesting, hey, could we use this to better effectively reach our immediate community? Because here, as you said toward the beginning, interestingly, we are a church community of people spread out around Raleigh. I mean, very few of us would call this area, I wouldn't either,
Well, yeah.
home mean, I don't live 2 streets over. I live another
I don't
zip
know.
code
I
away.
don't know anybody that lives.
Right. So it's interesting. How do we serve this area if we don't really, one, have representation in it,
Yeah.
and two, don't know much about it?
Right.
Those are big questions.
Well, I mean, I
Um,
don't want to go, down to the Starbucks in North Hills and, knock somebody over the head. Why aren't you coming to my church?
feel free.
Yeah, I know, right? I think
Go
I
for it.
think
Why
there's some
not?
laws against that right now, but I'd be doing the right thing,
Yeah.
but not in the eyes of the state of North Carolina.
Uh,
So yeah, it's kind of a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we can't continue thinking in that vein. And
Absolutely.
somebody smarter than I will come up with a
Sure.
really good idea of,
Yeah.
hey, how have you thought about this?
Yeah.
And I think any idea is a good idea.
Yeah.
It depends on, is it an actionable idea
Right.
or not? And one has to really think through that first before they bring it up, or not. We're pretty close,
Yeah.
all of us here, and let's just discuss it.
You probably remember Father Vince Kopp.
Very much, yes.
Yeah, who was here when I first got here. And he was an associate rector, also chaplain of the school at the time. And I remember he had an idea that I thought was brilliant, because it was something that would be very easy for us to do, but it would also make an impact. We have a memorial garden just out here.
Mhm.
And Vince, having been a physician in his previous career,
Mhm.
said that, there are a number of people who will pass away for all kinds of reasons who don't have family. Either they're of an
Sure.
age where all their family have died, or they're from another country, whatever it be, that for whatever reason they don't have anyone to bury them. And they've not made preparations, no grave, no nothing.
Happens
And so
all
what
the
do you
time, yeah.
do with the body? And so I think, from what I understand, the city will have, places where they will bury people for this, but you can volunteer to take people as well. So he wanted to
Oh.
actually contact, I can't remember if it was sort of Wake County, or this is going back too many years to remember those details, but basically he said, could we open our memorial garden up to receive the remains, cremains, not bodies,
Right.
of those who are unknown,
That's a
and
wonderful
known
idea.
only to God, basically. How appropriate they rest in God's presence. And I just
Wonderful
thought,
idea.
wow. And,
Yeah.
and sadly, he moved on before we kind of got that underway. But, ideas like that it's not necessarily a reinvention of the wheel. Because so often we can look at these bigger churches, even some of our Episcopal churches, Christ Church downtown, and go, oh my goodness, they have such opportunity, and, they have the means to do so much more. And we kind of just, get discouraged. But actually, the things we could do just by virtue of what we do have,
That's right.
and a willingness to do it. To me, that was just a real crystallized example of something that wouldn't have actually taken much, but man, it is important. It's impacting. I think when people hear we do stuff, that they go, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And hopefully it attests to God, not just to our creativity,
Of course, yeah.
but yeah, I really hope people start getting their minds thinking, as you clearly already are doing, which is great. To think, wow, how can we really serve Christ well, both in this area, but also in the wider Raleigh area as well.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate, and I'm to blame as well. Is
Mhm.
that sometimes I'll get very inspired here at St. Timothy's, and be at my house and think, well, hey, maybe it's a good idea to go and do X,
Right.
kind of thing. Well, I won't be back for another 6 days, and then no, really take action on something like that, and take it to the next level. I think you'd inspire yourself. I think one could inspire themselves. Sure.
Well, let us hope, as people have watched us and enjoyed our conversation for an hour, they'll also be inspired and
Hope
and
so.
both
Yeah.
learn, but also get to know you more,
Sure.
and
Certainly.
take what you're passionate about. And if they're looking for a workout buddy, good to know they have one now.
Clayton Fitness. See you
There
there
you
every
go.
day.
There you go, friends. You heard it from Ryan, Clayton Fitness. But Ryan, thank you for this time, and see, pain free. But at the end of the day, thank you, and just bless you as you continue to grow in faith, and God continues to work through you. Is there anything we as your church family can pray for you? It could be an immediate need, but just things as you look down the pike of the next few years. God, I'd love to see this more, or this less, or whatever it be.
My retirement. Absolutely. Yes.
So a big transition at the end of the day.
Yeah. Or not.
Sure.
No, it's not really, not necessarily
Okay.
personally for myself.
Mhm.
I pray for this church as I do
Sure.
every night.
Yeah.
But also, as I enter into St. Timothy's,
Yeah.
uh, Lord, thank you for allowing me in your house, kind of thing.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm sure a lot of other people, at least feel that or say that or
Yeah.
pray that. Um, so no, let's continue to pray for each other,
Okay.
whether that be a collective or singular. But
Sure.
by all means, let's pray for you know, the members of the church, the non-members of the church collective type of thing.
Cool.
I think that's not only just a good practice. I think it's something. St. Paul did it himself.
Yeah.
Prayed for all the churches, and we have those all documented very well too.
Indeed, we
So,
do.
so
And he says that, I have been praying for you with earnest.
yes,
Yeah, you're right.
and so yeah, I think if you're gonna give me something for the my brothers and sisters to pray for, just pray for St. Timothy's. I think is a
Okay.
great thing.
Sounds good. We
Yeah.
will. Well, Ryan, thank you. Thank you for being open. Thank you for being just with us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really
You got it.
appreciate it. It's a good time.
You got it. Good.